Good day and welcome. Today is Tuesday, the 31st of March, 2020. Today we'll be discussing the absolute rubbish numbers that the United States government, in the form of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, puts forward to the world in terms of unemployment numbers. The unemployment numbers for major countries are very important from an investor point of view. If unemployment is low, it means that the economy is humming along nicely, thriving, and everybody is effectively employed, which means that the factors of production and so forth are in place. The higher the unemployment, the more messed up the country is from an economic, financial point of view, and the less inclined investors will be to want to invest in that particular country or in the stock exchanges of that particular country. When you have a look at the BLS figures coming out of the United States, unemployment figures for February, March 2020 are 3.5%. Those figures are U3 figures. That is the figure that, or the number that the United States gives out to the rest of the world. The BLS also has a U6 figure, which is equally fictitious, but fictitious in different ways. Let's not worry too much about the U6 figures because everyone looks at the U3 figures. Now, according to the BLS, U3 figures are representative of real unemployment. The fact that, according to the BLS, a person that works 1 hour a month is classified as employed is completely insane. It's outrageous. Further, if a person hasn't got a job, but they have not applied for a job within the last 28 days, they are not classified as unemployed. They fall completely off the unemployment register. They don't count, they don't matter. So if you take a situation, for example, let's look at two extreme scenarios. The United States issues an instruction to the population that for some reason they're no longer, or they're not allowed to apply for a job for 28 days. That means on day 29, the United States can report, according to U3 figures, that they have a zero unemployment rate. That means that every single person in the United States that isn't excluded from U3 figures is employed. Now, if that isn't bullshit, I don't know what is. Secondly, if you have a look at the current CV-19 crisis, with lots of companies closing down and people basically not able to move to their place of employment or to a place of employment, if this continues for, let's say, in excess of 28 days, and nobody applies for a job because jobs aren't there to be had, and even if they could find a job, they couldn't move to their work address from their home, that would mean that in 28 days, nobody would have applied for a job, which means on day 29 of this situation, the US government can report to the world that their employment rate, or their unemployment rate, is zero, which means that their employment rate is 100%. That is equally insane. What's going to follow is going to be 3 slides, 2 of which are going to be slides indicating what and how the BLS does in terms of measurements of the unemployment statistic. One will be a graph indicating U3 and U6 differences, U6 being classified as real unemployment, but real is not real in normal terms. And the last slide is going to be my assessment of how unemployment should be actually measured and how and why it should be a global norm, so that each country reports accurately those people in that country that are really unemployed, and that the world has transparency when it comes to this type of figure, so that you can't manipulate the situation as the US manipulates unemployment figures, the stock exchange, and a host of other things, conning investors into feeling that the economy is humming along quite nicely due to low unemployment figures. I hope you find the statistics interesting. Please do me a favor and stick around, because you need to actually see what the BLS has to say about how they measure this statistic. Again, thank you for watching, and please stick around for the slides. The source of this material is at the top of the slide. Any text in red is my text. Let's get into it. Unemployment is defined by the Bureau of Labor Statistics as people who do not have a job, have actively looked for work in the past 4 weeks, and are currently available for work, Also, people who were temporarily laid off and were waiting to be called back to that job are included in the unemployment statistics. The BLS reports this in the U3 report, a part of the monthly jobs report. The BLS measures unemployment through monthly household surveys called the Current Population Survey. It has been conducted every month since 1940 as part of the government's response to the Great Depression. It has been modified several times since then and experienced a major redesign in 1994. That included a revamping of the questionnaire, the use of computer-assisted interviewing, and revisions to some of the labor force concepts. The BLS does not count everyone who is jobless as unemployed. It excludes those who have not looked for work within the past 4 weeks. The Bureau also removes them from the labor force. Most people leave the labor force when they retire, go to school, have a disability that keeps them from working, or have family responsibilities. The BLS doesn't count people who would like to work, but they aren't actively looking for work. The BLS does keep track of those people though. They are reported in the U6 unemployment rate. Some people call this the real unemployment rate. It includes those who have looked for work within the past 12 months, but not within the past 4 weeks. The Bureau calls them marginally attached to the labor force. A subset of the marginally attached is called discouraged workers. They have given up looking because they don't think there are jobs out there for them. The line chart to follow compares the U6 or real rate with the U3 or commonly reported rate. The shaded area in between both lines shows how the two rates differ during the same period. As you can see, there's a fair difference between U3 and U6 figures. However, both of them are complete fiction. U6 figures also exclude certain parts of what would otherwise be unemployed people, and as a result does not reflect true unemployment. Subheading: How the BLS measures employment. Employment is anyone 16 or older who worked any hours during the past week. That's according to the BLS. They can be paid employees or self-employed. They can be unpaid workers in a family-owned business as long as they work at least 15 hours a week. In my text, the 15 hours a week only applies to unpaid workers in a family-owned business. The any hours per week applies to anybody else. Back to the text. The BLS also includes people who didn't work during the week if they were temporarily absent due to vacation, illness, or other reasons. The BLS doesn't count residents of any institution as employees. That includes prisons, jails, mental facilities, and homes for the aged. It also does not count those on active military duty. To be counted, workers must be members of the US civilian non-institutional population. Subheading: How unemployment fits into the big picture. Not in the labor force equals these following three groups. People who would like work but haven't looked for it in the last month. They include the marginally attached who did look in the last year. They had school, ill health, or transportation problems that kept them from looking in the past month. Others are discouraged workers. They didn't believe that there are any jobs. Groups who aren't looking for work, they include students, homemakers, and retired people. Anyone under 16 is not included in the labor force, even if they are working. The unemployment rate is the number of unemployed people divided by the total number of people in the civilian workforce. The civilian labor force also has a specific definition. It includes the unemployed plus the employed and no one else. This is my comment in red on how unemployment should be measured. It seems that logic in this world just doesn't apply. Everything is a spin on something. Creative accounting is the rule and not the exception. This is what the whole world should be forced to use as a standard employment calculation so each country knows just how true and real the figures are, as all governments should calculate the unemployment rate in the same transparent way. An employable person should be anyone of employment age who is willing to work and capable of working regardless of when they last looked for employment or when they were last employed, and who is not considered excluded as per the below exclusions for calculation purposes. I believe the following people should be excluded from the employment or unemployment figures. Anyone under the age of 16 and over 65 years of age. Anyone with a mental handicap preventing them from validly contributing to the workforce. Anyone institutionalized, that is, prisoners, mentally handicapped, aged, etc. Anyone with a physical handicap preventing them from validly contributing to the workforce. Anyone on active military duty, homemakers, and full-time students. A person regarded as an employed person needs to work at least 24 normal hours, that is 3 times 8 hours, excluding overtime, a week. A partly employed person should be a person working less than 24 normal hours per week. The current US system of regarding a person who works 1 hour a week as employed is ludicrous. I hope you found this video interesting, the slides informative, and realize like I do that Harry Potter is a hell of a lot more interesting than the BLS figures that are presented to the world. Both are absolute fiction. However, Harry Potter is a hell of a lot more interesting and good reading relative to what the BLS has to say about the BS. Have a good day. Bye-bye.